Were you surprised when the Kobe and Shaq divorce happened?
Not surprised. I was mad because we
Yeah.
thought if those guys could have stayed together, it would have been it. But it was two type A personalities that both at the time needed to be the man. Um, I I don't know how deep you want me to go into this, but here's my 1 minute analogy of what I think happened.
Yeah.
Kobe was the first guy to practice every day and the last one to leave. Hardest working guy in the gym I've ever seen. I've done a bunch of podcasts, Brandon, when I've told the story that I've done radio shows along with my play-by-play my whole career. I do a show
Yep.
now that's on from 1 to 4 in the afternoon. But I've been on an everyday part. I've been a morning guy. I've been a mid-morning guy. I've been a midday guy. I've been an afternoon drive guy. No matter what time I would get to an arena, and a lot of times back in the day, we had to go do the show from the arena. Now we have a device where you can do it from a hotel room, but back then we didn't. I would go there and Kobe would be there. 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, blah, blah, blah. Now, transition that to Shaq. Shaq was life of the party, fun-loving guy, would be the last guy to walk into practice and the first one to leave. So Kobe thought, why am I doing all this work? I'm busting my ass, and we're running the whole offense and the whole defense through Shaq. Well, we should have been running that stuff through Shaq because he was the best player in the league and he was unstoppable.
Right.
And Phil Jackson tried to explain that to Kobe, and he said, look, he doesn't have your work ethic, but what he does have is size and skill that no one else can match. Your size and skill is great, but you're not Shaq. So we're going to run this through Shaq. And I believe that when Kobe had his first crack at free agency, if Shaq was still on the team, he would have left. I think he would have gone to the Clippers. And Mike Dunleavy, who was coaching the Clippers at the time, has told me that Kobe told him he was coming. And then Dr. Jerry Buss, because he was brilliant, sniffed it out, realized that if he didn't cut bait with Shaq, he was going to lose Kobe.
Yeah.
And he traded Shaq to Miami because he knew that if he didn't, Kobe was going to leave. And looking back, it turned out to be the right decision. They rebuilt the team around Kobe. They went to 3 more finals, and Kobe won 2 more titles. So it all worked out in the end, but I don't think there was anybody. Jerry West tried. Phil Jackson tried. I don't think there's anybody that could have got those guys to coexist in 2004.
What was it that more so like that, just that difference in work ethic, or were there actual incidents between them on team buses, in the locker room, on the plane that you ever witnessed?
I think a narrative that, and Shaq would tell you this if you ever get Shaq, that those two like hated each other was false. When they were on the plane together, when they were in the locker room together, I mean, they went to 4 finals together and won 3 championships.
Right.
If they hated each other, they couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
So they didn't hate each other. What kind of broke them up was Kobe didn't respect Shaq's work ethic because of what I talked about before. And Shaq couldn't understand why Kobe didn't get that he was unstoppable, that Shaq was what Shaq used to call the MDE, the most dominant ever. And even if Shaq didn't work as hard as Kobe, he was still unstoppable.
Yeah.
And so he couldn't understand why Kobe wanted to. Now, I will say this, towards the end, Shaq made a concerted effort to try and repair that relationship before he got traded. He called me over once. We were working a playoff series in San Antonio. And normally I had to wait to talk to Shaq because everybody needed him. And he goes, hey, come interview me today after everybody else goes away. And I said, okay. And I said, Shaq, something's on your mind. What do you want to talk about? He goes, I want to talk about how Kobe Bryant's the best player in the NBA. And I said, you're not the best player in the NBA? He goes, not anymore. He goes, he's passed me up. He's the best player in the NBA now, and he's going to carry us to the title. And I knew what Shaq was doing. He knew that I knew Kobe.
Yeah.
And he knew I would tell him. And I did. And it didn't matter in the end. Kobe was just convinced that the Lakers were not going to run the team through him. They were going to run it through Shaq. And he thought that Shaq was going towards the end of his career and Kobe was just starting in the beginning, and Kobe wanted his own team. And I think in the end, that's what broke them up. Brandon, if they could have got a room together and Shaq would have, pleaded with Kobe that he was going to give him the keys to the car. They could have made it work, but Kobe was pretty driven and pretty competitive, so I think it all worked out the way it should.
Did you personally have a stronger relationship with Kobe than Shaq?
I was about the same with both. I was kind of Switzerland. As the sideline guy at the time, I needed both to do my job. And they were really fun to cover. And they're both great guys. And I'll tell you this, when Kobe died, there was nobody more destroyed than Shaq.
Yeah.
He was destroyed. I mean, he tears up still to this day talking about him. And Shaq's like the toughest guy alive.
Right.
And he'll tell you he's not embarrassed that he tears up about it. He looked at Kobe as his little brother, and he doesn't focus on the breakup and the fact that they could have won more titles. He focuses on the fact that they got 3 together, and they were the most dynamic duo at the time in all of sports. So I think looking back, I tried to make sure I got along with both of them, and that's kind of the way I was able to keep my job and move forward. The running joke was, Brandon, back then, Steve Mason, my radio partner, and I, when we had a light day on the show, Mason would say, well, let's just open the phones and say, Kobe or Shaq, which team are you on? And we'd have 4 hours of phone calls. We could do that now in 2023. But it was cool for me to see when Kobe played his last game, which for my money is my favorite game I've ever done, even though it was on a 19-win team. Shaq was at the game, was one of the first ones to congratulate him. Those guys made up before Kobe died. And I know Shaq is really thankful that he had the chance to do that.